Hello, Internet, and welcome to my much late review for Steins Gate Zero, episode 23. Normally I have a good excuse for why, my videos are late. Sometimes it's because I'm, driving up the country or whatnot. The only excuse I have is I did not want to talk about this episode. It was bad. God, it was bad. It had a lot of things that I feel like could have been good, if only the show behind it had been better. But it wasn't. So, let's get right on in. When we last left off, Okabe had failed again. And so we had Okabe un-Kyoma'd himself, and then re-Kyoma'd himself in like 2 minutes. It was really pointless. And the gang realized that the only way they could, I forget exactly how it worked, but like the only way they could stop Leskainen, because Leskainen found out about the time machine being there because of Amadeus, I think, and so by deleting Amadeus from existence, they would stop Leskainen from knowing where they'd be on July 7th. And then we had a very rough facsimile of the original series, episode 22, with Okabe and Amadeus trying to fill in for Okabe and Kurisu from the original series and drastically failing. That's where we leave off. So, our first shot of the episode is the telephone pole up against the white sky, which is maybe the one good thing this episode does. It's a nice callback. Like, the very first episode of the original series, the good series, opens with that same thing, the same, the whole, white background, the black telephone pole, as Okabe, monologues meaninglessly in the background, And that was, it was a nice way of saying this is where Steins Gate ends. We really don't need any more Steins Gate. As much as the me of 6 months ago would have killed for more Steins Gate, we did not need more Steins Gate. Steins Gate was perfect as it was. Well, it still had its problems, but it was mostly perfect as it was. Still one of my favorite series. And as we go to, so Okabe goes to the tower where, the radio building where Suzuha and Mayuri are getting into the time machine to go back. And he is caught by Leskainen again, somehow. It's kind of weird. I thought that the point of Amadeus, they're getting rid of Amadeus, was that Leskainen would not know where they were, where the time machine was, when he could get to the time machine. I thought that was what getting rid of Amadeus would do, but it didn't. I get, I get him being aware of time travel because he still would have Kagari, but he shouldn't really have all this exact knowledge. Kagari shouldn't know when they would be on July 7th because the Kagari hasn't been there on July 7th, 2011 yet, because she wasn't born until, 29, I think. So that's just weird. I don't know. For one thing, what exactly getting rid of Amadeus did isn't really, somehow getting rid of Amadeus made the helicopter missile shot 5 seconds too late, and that helped Suzu and Mayuri escape, I think is what happened. I'm not sure. I don't fucking know. But yeah. We also have Moeka before all this stuff happens, Moeka stops, Leskainen from shooting Okabe, which she did back in episode 21 in a much more interesting way. So another count against it. So now let's get to Kagari. So Kagari, I haven't talked a lot about Kagari, because Kagari has not been very important. Kagari's motivations they kind of remind me as kind of a her feelings for Mayuri are kind of like the flip of Tennoji and Nai, which I think is one of the better motivations in the series. Probably my favorite motivation in the series is Tennoji, being aware that he's doing utterly atrocious actions, killing multitudes of people, but he knows that if he, tries to leave, he can either try to spirit his, 10-year-old daughter away, or CERN will kill her. And while, everyone, including Tennoji, agrees that it would be better for the world for him to do that, it's very human and, like, heartbreaking and tragic that he wants to protect Nai to the extent that, he dooms everyone else. That's a very human reaction. Kaguri could have been in a similar way, except in the reverse. She's willing to doom humanity to the second worst timeline, because the Beta World line is still better than the Alpha World line. That's why we went through the original series. There was all this shit at the beginning of the series, like, oh, the Beta World line is the worst possible timeline. Then why the fuck did the original series happen? Just ignore Zero existed after this video. Your life will be much better, I promise. But as I was saying about Kaguri could have worked if we really spent time to explore how she's willing to doom humanity to the second worst timeline in order to have her mother-daughter relationship with Mayuri. That could have been interesting and good to, like, wring some pathos out of. And the episode certainly seemed to want to wring some pathos out of that if it weren't for one problem, and that is we have never explored her character in a meaningful way. At all. She's just kind of been there. Which is God, Zero is such a mess. Zero is such a mess. So, and Kaguri, she says, she tries to get Okabe on her side. Okabe shows up and he's like, no, let them go, Kaguri, I have, Momoko help out, the whole shebang. And Kaguri is all like, oh, but like, fuck, how did it go? I'm trying to remember exactly what she said. It was like, you'll never see her again if she goes a year into the past. Which is fundamentally nonsensical. For one thing. Because Kaguri, so maybe the VN does this better. But the show does not explain that if Mayuri and Suzu go back to the past, they'll be, like, flung to the outer reaches of time. They've been saying one-way trip, but it's been, like, really my assumption before this episode, and we see later on they're, like, flung into 18,000 BC for whatever, for, like, 5 seconds, where they come right back. More on that in a bit, because that pissed me off. But, like, it's kind of been implied that, they'll just live out a year of their lives, and then they'll see them again a year later. That's, for one thing, so I get that later on, Suzu was like, oh, if we stay here, it'll be a paradox, and so we have to, like, jump, no matter what the consequences. But it can't be, that has to be because they can't have Mayuri and Suzu there at the same time. Because way back in the original Steins Gates, they assumed that Suzu, before they found out that Suzu killed herself, of course, when she went back to the 70s, they assumed that she'd come back just a real old lady. Or, not real old lady, like in her, like, 40s or 50s. She's not really that old. And so, which means, all of Mayuri and Suzu's problems, because phones work as long as you're in a good signal. So if they had just traveled to America, or not even America, because international calling is a whole big thing. If they had just warped to, I don't know, Shibuya, or I don't know where Japan had phone lines in 2010, because I am not a master of 2010 Japan's phone lines. But like way out in the countryside, as long as they had signal, because all they needed was to call Mayuri. You don't need to be right next to someone to call them. That's not how calling works. So all of this drama is because they had to make it dramatic and warp right next to where the other time machine was going back 3 weeks in the past. Alright. I've been griping a lot about this, and I apologize, because as I've said in the past, this is a channel that was built on positivity. It was built on me being tired of all the negativity in the fairy tale fandom, and so it always kind of hurts when I further on that negativity here, but Jesus Christ, this was bad. God. Alright. What's my next point? Have I covered this one enough yet? Yeah. So, there is no reason that unless Kaguri is accurate in assuming that Suzu is just a complete idiot, she would rationally assume she would be geographically somewhere that's not right where the paradox would happen. What is up with that? Just go somewhere else. What? Okay. So, but anyway, let's just assume that makes sense. It doesn't. Well, let's assume that it makes sense. So after Suzu and Mayuri have to warp immediately after Mayuri calls past Mayuri in order to give her the motivation to slap Okabe, which is apparently now the reason Okabe went back one more time, despite the fact that it was the video that future Okabe sent Suzu, or past Okabe, and God, that was they ruined that. They ruined that. That was one of the shining moments of the original series, but I will talk about it later because there's so much stuff to complain about. Alright, so Mayuri and Suzu have this what's clearly supposed to be a tear-jerking moment, where, you know, they seemingly die or are sent back in time to a meaning to, you know, never be seen again, which has a big fucking problem. And that is, well, the first thing, so there's a thing that the anime left out in the original game, which is a shame because it's one of my favorite moments in the game. At the very end of the series, you know, Okabe sees Kurisu again, the Steins Gate timeline. He calls her, it's either Christina or Assistant, one of the nicknames she hates, and she instinctively complains, like, why do you always call me that nickname, or stop calling me that, or something. And in the game, in the anime that just plays out, and they have this whole, like, moment in the series ends. In the game, Okabe has this realization that puts everything, especially in Ruka and Barris' plot lines, where, if you remember the original series, way back when the series was good, they, you know, suddenly remember their alternate timelines. Because Okabe realizes that reading Steiner is not the special ability he thinks it is. The exact line is, everyone has reading Steiner. Because it's more like Okabe is just better at remembering alternate world lines, but it's not like but the assumption has been that he was, you know, hopping around to different existent world lines, where in reality he was creating new ones. And there are some hints to that in the original series, when John Titor at the very beginning is explaining everything. He mentions, like, changes in the world line obliterates the previous one, but it's never really explained to the amount that the game does at the very end. I bring this up because even before we find out that by the end of the episode Okabe is going to go back in time and save Suzu and Mayuri anyway, they try to sell us on the tragedy of Suzu and Mayuri being flung to time, despite the fact that we know within, you know, an hour or two, from Okabe's perspective, they'll be brought back to live their normal lives. Suzu will be brought back to 2017, be born, and have her whole life, and Mayuri will go back to 2011, I guess, and, you know, her memories of all this will be forgotten, and none of this will have even mattered. So, what was the point? Which is kind of my thing with the entire series. What was the point of any of this? Like, alright, I'm gonna skip ahead. From my plotting. So I did not actually get this interpretation when I first watched the episode. It was like the Anime News Network review was how I realized this, is that the 2025 sending the video back in the past was not actually in World War III. Why? Who thought that was a good idea? That the world was at peace in the beta world line, except Suzu and Mayuri being flung back to 18,000. Also, if Okabe's plan is to bring them right back to 2025, how is he going to deal with however fucking old 19-year-old Suzu and 7-year-old Suzu, or 6-year-old, I don't fucking know their ages anymore, 8-year-old Suzu? Fuck. Because that's a paradox. Remember when the two time machines and they have to leave because if the two Suzus are in the same place, that'll create a paradox, and nothing about this finale made sense. But anyway. So. The way Zero was described, was, you know, kind of advertised, is that it would be the story of what happened to the world to make 2025 Okabe realize that his last-ditch effort was to deceive time. In that grand moment from the original series that nothing in Zero comes close to, the deceive time plotline. Which I still get chills just thinking about. Because, God, the original series is so good. Alright. But the problem is, Zero wants us to believe that grand moment was pointless. And, I like the idea of Mayuri, taking initiative and being the one to, slap some sense into Okabe, quite literally. And that being the moment that makes everything work. But it's just, God, I can't even put into words how much I don't like how this happened. It's just the Operation Scold being this big last-ditch effort from Okabe to save everything, to finally put the universe right, is so good. And, and having it be... God, I don't even know. I don't even fucking know. This was a bad episode. The show was a mistake. I hate to say it. Normally, there's, even shows I don't like, there's generally, some reason for them to exist. Either, the characters are nice, or there were some good parts to it, I can't really bring many examples here, because all the anime I've reviewed I, really like. Maybe if Angel of Death had been as bad as I thought it would be in the first couple episodes, there would still be, I don't know, even if the end of Angels of Death turned out to just really not be anything worth noting, it still has that core of Zack and Rachel's characters, and their great relationship. I can't suggest Steins Gate Zero to anyone. I really can't. If you love Steins Gate, if you want to actively watch someone shit on one of the most iconic series in all of anime, fine, watch Zero. Don't watch, there's one episode you should watch of Zero, and that is episode 8. To see how a beta world line would react to seeing Kurisu alive again. You should not wonder how he got back to the alpha world line, because the answers barely exist. Let's be honest. It's still super fucking vague. You should not wonder anything about what's going on beyond that episode. You should watch that episode like a fun little OVA, cry your eyes out again. Even that is still kind of cammed in all the emotions Okabe already felt in the original series. I hate this episode. I hate this show. Zero, I can't... I have to refuse to take any of Zero's revelations as Steins Gate canon. I refuse to accept that the iconic Operation Skull speech was making Okabe believe the world was shitty. That it came from mostly peace. I can't get behind that. Anyway, let's move on to the last scene of the episode. 18 minutes in, I'm finally getting to the end. This fucking rant. I pride myself on, even on when, it's a content I don't like, even in Fire Brigade, the Tamaki versus Assault fight, which I hated and I roasted in my review for it, I'm glad I pride myself on never reaching rant levels of anger. This is a fucking rant level of anger. I fucking hate this episode. Alright. So, they make this big deal about Okabe, tracking onto the curb black hole of Mayuri and Suzu's time machine so he could go back in time for a test drive of the time machine and take them back to the present. And I guess there's just 2 Suzus in the Beta World line, except there isn't, because the Beta World line stops existing in the end. Because that's how Steins Gate ends. None of that big sure, taking on his own, the big Okabe, with the lights behind him, dramatically walking towards Suzu and Mayuri, might be cool and all, but it doesn't matter, because, everything's gonna be rewritten as soon as Okabe saves Kurisu. None of this mattered! And sure, maybe that Okabe is not aware of the whole everyone has reading Steiner line at the end of the original Steins Gate, but I am. I know about it, so how the fuck should I care? Why the fuck should I care? The audience is assumed to know about it. The very least, in the original VM they would have, because they assumed they played the original VN, the Steins Gate VN. But, I got nothing! This is just... Nothing. Nothing about this really works. So yeah. Everything in this series was overridden by the end of Steins Gate. So I'm gonna bring up something that I haven't really talked about a lot. And that is something that I feel like Zero, from its very concept, didn't really seem to understand. And that is why Steins Gate works. And to me, Steins Gate is the ultimate earn your happy ending. And an earn your happy ending story only works if you get the happy ending. And so, for most of its run, it seems like Steins Gate Zero was just willing to give us, you know, this, Okabe loses ending, which defeats the point of Steins Gate. But then at the end, I think they finally realized, Steins Gate works because Okabe wins. And so, they had to give us Okabe winning, which is completely meaningless because we know his other victory will overwrite this victory. God, this video is almost as long as the episode itself, and I bet a whole lot less. I don't even know. The episode wasn't fun, and this video doubt is fun. Unless you're like really angry about Zero and want to have some catharsis. CATHART with me. CATHART with me. Yeah. Fuck Zero. Don't watch Zero. Seriously, if you made it 22 minutes into a Steins Gate Zero video, without having seen Steins Gate Zero, let me warn you, don't watch Zero. Just, if you really want to see the cast of Steins Gate again, rewatch Steins Gate. You'll be better for it. The original Steins Gate is a classic, and honestly, after having seen Zero, I'm scared to go back and find out that the original series has been ruined for me. I'm really scared of that, and it's going to be a while before I watch Steins Gate again, and I'm going to absolutely ignore Zero. But yeah, that's Steins Gate Zero. Hope you liked it more than I did, because I hated it. That being said, I didn't hate watching most of it. Because there was always this promise that it would get better. That eventually it would find the plot and everything would go back to how it was. A quality series. And the beginning was pretty good too. But it didn't. It dropped the ball. So yeah, that's Steins Gate Zero. Hope you all enjoyed this video more than I enjoyed making it, because I don't like being angry about things. I've said this before, but it's really true. I don't like being the hater. But yeah, if you want to see more of my content now that Steins Gate Zero is over, I have plenty of manga reviews from Boruto to the new Fairy Tail series to Hiramashima's new work Eden Zero to Atsushi Okubo, the author of Soul Eater's vaguely new work. It's been like 2.5 years now. It's not really new. Shit, no, it's been 3 years since Fire Brigade came out. That was like September my senior year of high school. Fuck. But anyway, I got Fire Brigade Flames on here. Black Butler, Blue Exorcist, Silver Spoon that comes back, whatever. I also have anime reviews like Boruto, which will be continuing for a while. Titan, which has got, I hope, another core on it. Academia has an episode left this season. Angels of Death, which has 4 more episodes, I think, that I hope are not coming out on one time, because I really don't want to do a supersized video. I don't have the voice for that. But yeah, feel free to check those out. I also have a straw poll in the description that I think in my anger I forgot to bring up at the beginning, or maybe I maybe I remembered. I don't remember anything from the beginning of this video because I've just been so angry the whole time. It's a straw poll to see what series you want me to cover for the fall season, which is coming up in 3 days. That's Monday. Fuck. Christ. Okay. That's soon. Sooner than I thought it was. But yeah. Like, subscribe, straw poll shit. You know, I don't have the energy. Do whatever you want. You know what? I ain't the boss of you. I like to see you stick around, because I'm sure y'all are all great people. But yeah. That's all I have to say. So until you find a better show, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye.